Hello, everybody, and welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. We're excited to talk with you today. We're going to talk all about how AI is making skills-based work a reality. Before we get too deep into this, I do want to take a pause and just say thank you. We know this conference is really busy. There's a lot of places you can be, a lot of booths to see, a lot of sessions to see. So thank you for spending some of your event with us. As for who we are, my name is Connor Volpe. I'm a product marketer at Eightfold. I'm joined by Anthony Shields. Anthony, would you mind introducing yourself to everybody?
Hey Connor, yes, and I'd like to add my thanks for everyone joining today in this very intimate space. I can see it's very intimate, so as an ex-school teacher, I won't ask you all to move to the front just yet. I'm Anthony Shields. I'm the partner and global digital talent leader in EY, so looking after all our platforms for 400,000 people globally.
And obviously, as impressive as that all is, you're here for a reason, which is that we're working together on some things. Would you mind giving people, we'll go in, would you mind giving people a little update or a brief update on what it is we're doing together?
Yeah, sure. We've been partnering with Eightfold now for almost 2 years, effectively around what we call our next wave careers skills pivot. What does that mean? We've been partnering around implementing an Eightfold AI for now up to around 150,000 plus. We actually had a go live this morning, Connor, so that number changed.
Yeah.
We've been partnering around how we change the way that we do careers in EY. And thirdly, we've been partnering alongside our work with Skills Foundry in EY, along with Eightfold, with our clients to try and bring some of that champagne to the market.
And so we'll be getting into, you mentioned next wave careers. That's the primary focus of today. And we'll be going through how that applies to the skill-based work. But where we'll start today's session over a little bit of a shift in mindset where we see HR going from more of a focus on job to talent. And that's something that's very important to Eightfold, how we build our products. Then we'll talk through resource management. That's a brand new product that Eightfold is building alongside with EY to bring to market and how that is helping companies do skill-based work. And we'll go through three different value stories that EY is seeing with Eightfold on people value, client value, financial value. We'll kind of bring that up together to bring the story to life. Without further ado, we'll dive in. So the World Economic Forum put out a report earlier this year, and they made some very interesting discoveries, which is they said that almost a quarter of the job over the next 5 years will be disrupted. And they're actually seeing there'll be 14 million fewer roles in 5 years' time. Anybody else get a little nervous when they read that, when they see that? The World Economic Forum, they had some thoughts about why that was, and some of this is just natural. Some roles erode over time, but mainly what they were talking about is AI, and that AI is going to creep into some of these roles and make them old, or rather out of date, faster than we can keep up. But as we were kind of looking at this, you made a very good point, Anthony, which you talked about. Yes, AI is making a lot of changes for us, but you talked about something important, which I thought was human-centric AI, which is, again, something that we take very seriously at Eightfold, but you had a great point on that.
Yeah, I think that, as artificial intelligence starts to become something we can actually get value from as we move from the wonder to the wisdom on it, EY's been working, and certainly my teams have been working for 5 years now on AI, but now I think we are at a turning point where you're starting to see the real value come through. And so, yeah, absolutely. We've been trying in everything we do to make it human-centric, to look at empathy in AI. And that's something that in the skills area is so important because obviously it touches an area where all of us in this room and everyone globally will have a reason they want to use that AI because it's your skills profile.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about more of that detail and how we're doing that together. But one of the things I want to call out here is we talk about this shift from jobs to talent. And that's a key thing that the World Economic Forum focused on here, which makes sense. They're focused on the jobs. They're focused on the roles. But what we're starting to see is this shift in HR in general. We're all kind of programmed to think about a job or a role, but that leads to a very inside-out process where we take this job and try to bring it to as many possible people as we can. And a lot of that is informed because it is a very inside-out process. How do we come up with that job and the needs? Well, we think about the job title and the job description. We talk to the hiring manager. There's a particular location. All these things happen from within our four walls. And where that ends up leading are some, at times, less than desirable outcomes. It can be very reactive. HR can feel like an order taker rather than someone that's on the front foot, so to speak. Or we make decisions rather that are solely based on that job. And again, we were talking about this a little bit. There's a center of gravity that I think HR has around the job. And you were talking about how it doesn't always serve HR to have that center of gravity be the job.
Yeah. Well, I think many of you, I'm sure, in the room will recognize something that I've experienced in my career, which is 25 plus years, so a bit longer with the salt and pepper hair, but in HR, which is that, effectively we have been setting up in HR huge amounts of structure, which is fantastic. A lot of structure, a lot of quite rigid process, and there's some good reasons for that. EY, as a compliance-based organization, obviously SEC, etc., we have to have that structure in place. But at the same time, that structure has got to a point where we have turned into somewhat order taking. And let me give you an example of that. Back in when I started out in my consulting career before I took an internal job in EY, effectively the very first time I went out to a client site, large retailer, the person I was taking over from came along literally with a trolley of Visio files with process all the way through it. And on the top of it, it said transformation. Now, that's fine from the point of view of, setting incredible job structures up, job architectures, position management, etc. But it has led HR, and indeed this is the case in HR and in EY and a lot of our clients, to be too rigid, to be focused, I guess, too much internally. And frankly, a lot of that work has been self-generating.
And that's, I think, what we're going to get into here is this shift from the job, which can lend itself to some rigidity, to this shift to focus on the talent. And while that might seem like a little bit of a word dance here, it allows us to be a little bit more outside in, where everything is focused on that one individual job or that position. Now we think about this as relating to a person. And so instead of assigning skills, for example, to a particular position or job, we can look at a person's skill, or utilize things like their persona, those learnability, the adjacency, their preferences, and that leads to different outcomes. That allows us to be more agile. You're talking about running around and being very rigid in nature. If we think about the skills or the talent of a particular person, all different places they can be useful, they might want to be in that organization, that allows us to move a little faster. It allows also HR to be on the front foot a little bit, more of an advisor rather than someone that's reacting to the needs of the business. And again, this is something that you're starting to notice at UI. You have a younger cohort coming in, they're starting to politely ask, perhaps, for something more like this rather than what I think we're all familiar with.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I mentioned my salt and pepper hair in EY. That's not indicative of our organization. Most of our organization is under 35 years old. Most of our organization is looking for a completely different career to the one that I started out on professional services. So what are they looking for? They are not looking for jobs. They are absolutely looking for careers based on skills. And those skills, they are looking at being much more fungible. They know that they need to make those skills fungible in EY, or they will take those skills out into the market much faster than we've ever experienced before. And so the challenge for us is, how do we move HR from being, if you like, a jobs and competency pusher into being a true enabler of that shift? And how do we let go of some of that structure whilst retaining it where it's needed in the organization?
Well, and I mean, let's be very candid too. The way that EY works is you currently staff people, consultants around the world on projects.
Yep.
So it makes sense that this might be something you're experiencing more early, because this is how people get staffed. It's in theory based on their skill set.
Yeah, I mean, we are an absolute pure play people business. The only things that professional services sells and EY sells is trust and skills. Those are the two things that enable us to deliver, as you mentioned, and what we'll come on to talk a little bit more about, financial value, client value. It's the only way that we can do that.
Yeah. So we're starting to see this shift, not only in your business, but in general. In fact, so Ravin Jasuthasan, who's the co-author of Work Without Jobs, had this great quote that you and I both really liked, which he sees that the role of HR in general it's shifting from being a steward of employment to being a steward of work and learning how to keep the workforce perpetually relevant, which I really, that makes a lot of sense, especially for a business like yours, where the whole point, as you mentioned, is we have to be trusted and we have to bring the right value to the right client at the right time. But I thought this was a really interesting kind of signal where it's all going.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a brilliant one. That shift is going to be quite dramatic in terms of a change for HR, and that's what we're finding right now. And it's difficult, very difficult. You would imagine that the opportunity to get involved in AI and to get involved in skills would equal adoption, but that is not necessarily the case. We're having to work very, very hard to get that change in place because you're working with those specific things that are so important for every one of us, which is it's my skill set, it's my CV resume, etc. But the opportunity for HR is to really make sure that they can shift into that wisdom area, really truly become an enabler, and that is what's happening in that skills shift right now.
And you, I think one of the reasons this resonated with you is this brought back in your days on the client side, some examples perhaps of needing to be able to see the skills, understand the skills. It wasn't the position that a client was asking for; they're asking for something a little bit beyond that.
That's right. Well, so in EY, as we'll talk about a little bit more, our entry point into looking at that skills shift has been careers, as I mentioned. So we have a significant problem that we're addressing, which is this kind of pyramid structure. Everyone trying to become a partner, very, very rigid career paths. How do we get that flexibility in place?